The Agenda with Michael Knight on News Radio 560 KPQ and KPQ.com.
This is News Radio 560 KPQ. Our time is 1:31. My special guest is Judge Kristin Ferrera. She's the incumbent and also a candidate for the Chelan County Superior Court running for re-election, or running for election or re-election. I should know. Election. So you've never been elected? I was appointed, and so now I'm seeking to retain my seat. And who appointed you? Governor Inslee did. Did you know the governor? I did not. No. I guess you do now. I met him when he had the final interview. Well, I asked this of Robert McSeveny when he got appointed. I said, how did you know? And he said, I was driving down the road and the phone rang, and the governor was at the airport saying, I only have a little time, but here's something you should know. How did it happen for you? I was at my office, and I got a similar call. So that's cool. Towards the end of the day. Heart palpitations? Yes, because it was very exciting. Well, when you started your legal career, did you want to be a judge? I don't think when I started my legal career, I knew that would be something that I could do. I was just excited to be a lawyer because being a lawyer is exciting, and I didn't have anybody else in my family that had been a lawyer. So I was the first in my family to do that, and I had kind of a different plan of what I was going to do with my legal career, but then I went into private practice and loved my work at Jeffers Danielson, which is one of the law firms in town, Jeffers Danielson, Son and Aylward, and so I went on the path of private practice until I applied for the judge position. Wow! So the type of practice you practiced at Jefferson was criminal law? It was civil litigation and family law. So I practiced a variety of different cases that would go on for a long time. So I would spend months and months on a particular area of law. Say I would have construction cases where there's a construction dispute. I would have lots of cases involving agricultural law. Many of them had to do with employment. I also did some defense for law enforcement. We did some work for the counties, and then I had family law cases and other contract disputes and personal injury. And it's quite a bit. It was, when I was practicing as an attorney, I thought sometimes it doesn't sound great that you don't have this one area that's your specialty area. I do this one area of law, but I would get to the point where I would be so familiar with that particular area of law because it was such a complex case and it would go on for so long. And so now as a judge, I feel like I really benefited from that experience because when you get on the bench, you get a case that you only have a certain amount of time to get familiar with that area of law. Well, now I have that background in so many of these different areas that I have something to draw from, which is really helpful. That may have helped in the selection of the governor to choose you. I think it did. Well, let's go back a bit to where you were born. Where were you born? I was born I was born in Snohomish. Not in Snohomish. That's not where the hospital, but that's where I was when I was where I was raised. Just outside of the town. So a small town at the time. It's not so small anymore, but it was a small town then, very rural. Our house was out kind of in the woods. We had a family orchard of pears and apples, and we had honeybee hives. My dad cultivated honeybees, and we had chickens. So, and my dad actually, when we moved out there when I was an infant, my dad built our house. So he was working in Kirkland and then commuting from Snohomish to Kirkland, coming home after 50 hours working a week, and built our house by hand. So wow. Quite an achievement. It was. Very impressive. Guys who do that always say, I learned how to do it now. Now I'm going to build another one because when I started, I didn't know how to build a house, but now I do. Yeah. And I want to do it again. That's the only one he did. I know. It was a lot of work. It is a lot of work. Right. When did you discover the law was going to be your future? High school? I had thought about it early on, but when I say thought about it, it was an idea. That would be I would like to do that, but I don't know that I had the confidence that I could do it. So I'd say even in elementary school, I toyed with the idea, but didn't know anybody who was a lawyer. I mean, I really had nobody to look up to that. No mentor at all? No, not until really after
I graduated from college, I had a friend who was going through law school and was explaining the process to apply. And I had other attorneys at that point that I had worked with because I was in New Mexico for a year after I graduated college, and I was doing the AmeriCorps Vista program. And
what's that?
That is a national program for volunteers that go to different areas of the country and help with nonprofit organizations that need help. Our particular program was the SATNAC program, which was Sustainable Adventure Tourism in Native American Communities, which is a long word, but it was...
How to get people to buy blankets on the reservation?
No, adventure tourism. So we were building trails. We were helping build trails and helping to cultivate a trail network, and for running, hiking, biking, it was all about adventure tourism.
Our special guest is Judge Kristin Ferrera. She's running for election and re-election. She's currently the incumbent. She was appointed. I always talked about law school because law school is such a crucible for people. Some people make it, some people don't. Some people make it the second time. How was it for you?
I loved law school.
Where'd you go?
I went to University of Washington. And,
I've heard of that school.
Yes. And I liked my undergraduate studies. I loved law school. I loved the method that they taught, where we would have to go in and they did what they call the Socratic method, where at any point they could call on you and you never knew if you were going to be the one. So you had
Socrates
to come prepared.
Was such a gamer,
Yeah.
He loved to call on people.
Yes. So you had to be prepared every single day with every single class. And there was a lot of reading, but it was interesting. I really loved learning about the case law.
So you liked the schooling, but you liked the challenge.
Right, exactly.
And when you began practicing law, were you here in town, or where did you start?
My whole professional career has been here in town. I started at Jeffers Danielson's on Annual Word, and that's where I was when I was a partner there when I actually right before I came on the bench.
They made you a partner.
Yes.
That's nice.
Yes, I was a partner.
That means they liked you.
Yes, I think so.
Well, what sort of feeling did you have when you first came to Wenatchee about the law and how you were going to fit into the community?
Well, I had spent a summer here before I moved here permanently for after law school, and I knew that I loved it here. It felt very similar in size, and the community feel was similar to what I had growing up. It's a bigger town, but it still has that small town feel, and everybody is very connected and friendly, and it just you really feel like a part of the community pretty early on, and I still just love that about it.
Do you think that we get professional services from our reliance on the judges that work in our superior court? And do you think that we should be proud of the level of excellence that we may or may not have right now in our legal system here?
Yes, I think we should be very proud. I thought that as an attorney, but now that I've worked with the different judges, both in our county and also in surrounding counties, I truly believe that regardless, of course, that people are always going to be unhappy if they don't win or if they don't get if the judge doesn't make the decision that they think the judge should make. But I think that we have such a high caliber of judges and attorneys, and the care for trying their best to get the right decision, to be prepared when you walk in and you're hearing a case, and to read the law and review the law when you're thinking about how you're going to handle a case. That is there for all the judges that I've met. It's incredibly important. And also they come from this standpoint, and how judges are supposed to be is they're supposed to be neutral and unbiased. And I really do think that I think that the judges that I've met do their very best to be neutral and unbiased walking into a case. As
an attorney, did you ever meet or encounter a judge and say to yourself, if I'm ever a judge, I am never going to do that?
Once in a while. Yeah. I did learn a few things as an attorney.
And was it just because you were losing, or you just didn't you didn't think that he was being straight, or she?
Sometimes it was that when it seemed like there were a couple instances, and this is not locally, so I'm not saying anything, where I felt like maybe the judge wasn't prepared and hadn't read through everything that we had submitted, and so wasn't prepared to ask questions and wasn't prepared to make a decision, and that was really
That's
difficult.
disappointing.
So, but nobody locally.
You've already talked about reading through the law. I guess what you're saying is you're reading all the case law surrounding anything that might apply to your case?
Yes. We need to stick with the issues that are presented to us, but we do also need to know what cases apply to those issues and what statutes as well. And I think it's incredibly important that you prepare that ahead of time before you go into court and before you're hearing the argument.
The room that you work in, is that the same room that you were a lawyer in? You used to be at the table, now you're at the bench?
Yes. Yeah, except I also practiced in other courts. So
District court?
Not district court, but I practiced in Grant County Superior Court and Douglas County Superior Court, and I also practiced in federal court in the Eastern District of Washington. So I went to Spokane and the Tri-Cities and then Yakima sometimes.
It's good to get that extra experience, isn't it? If you've never argued in federal court, it can be a challenge.
It can be a challenge. It's very intimidating.
The judges are intimidating.
The judges are intimidating. The courthouse is intimidating. There's extra security that it really does feel. It's different, and but it was such a great experience, and I loved being in federal court. I loved being in superior court too, but I got to the point where I felt pretty comfortable in federal court too. Yes,
I only as a reporter do I know anything about courtrooms. And in some cases, you can take notes and make recordings depending on what's said. But in federal court, you can't even take your items into the courtroom.
Okay.
You have to leave them in Los Angeles anyway, you have to leave them at the front desk. There is no equipment to be taken past the doorway.
Oh, interesting.
And the judges, I thought, were very outspoken right away.
Yes.
You stand up and you're making a few statements, and he just interrupts and goes right into a spiel, and you go, oh, God, this is not going to go well for these people.
You can tell. Yes, that is very true. I've experienced that as well.
And the judge in federal court has help, doesn't he? He's just like there's all these law students off to the side that have already read through the case and have made recommendations.
They do have more clerks that will do the legal briefing, and so they have their cases. They have help in preparing their cases. We also have a law clerk. We have one law clerk for the three judges, though. And in federal court, you have, depending on the judge, you have multiple, sometimes, clerks for each judge.
We've talked about your upbringing and your education and how you got to Wenatchee, but what do you think the people here, what do you think the voters here do before they make a choice on a judge? What goes through their mind? What sort of decision are they really making?
I think it's actually a really difficult job to vote for a judge because a lot of times, because we're nonpartisan, so there's no party affiliation, and so people cannot look to that, which sometimes often is how people will. That will help them make that decision.
Yeah, they're voting, so they're going to see, are you a Democrat, are you a Republican, are you an independent? What did you do? Who are you?
Right, exactly. And judges are nonpartisan, and it's really important that we stay nonpartisan because we do need to be independent and neutral and unbiased. And so I've heard many people say, I don't know what to look for in a judge. What types of things can we know about you to help us understand if we should vote for you? And the things that I tell them is, well, first of all, you want a judge that is neutral and unbiased. You want somebody who's honest and who has integrity. You want somebody who works hard. And you also want somebody who's smart enough to be able to understand the issues. And then finally, you do want somebody that has background and knowledge that will help in that job. It's very hard to find somebody who has all of the areas of law covered. I think that's pretty unusual to find that, but at the very least to have legal background in some of the major areas is really important.
Is there a good personality for a judge, someone who can't be upset easily, someone who's unflappable? Because the judge that gets angry all the time is probably going to be angry all the time.
Right.
That's the way it is in courtrooms, right? Where people are arguing.
Exactly. You do not want to have a judge that has a hot temper.
No.
You want to have somebody who is able to stay calm and neutral, and at the same time will issue orders very quickly and efficiently, and But one of the things you really don't want to see is somebody who's losing their temper and
losing their composure.
Losing their composure,
Yeah.
right.
What is the outcome that we want when we vote for a judge? We want someone who's fair. We want someone who's unbiased. We want someone who maybe has got some experience. And you have that now. How many years as a judge?
Well, I came on the bench in January, so
1 year.
So now 6
Almost.
months, actually.
Yeah.
6 months as a judge, and before that, almost 10 years in private practice.
And those 6 months, do you think you've learned a lot?
Yes, I've learned quite a bit. And I will say, too, it is different being an attorney and being a judge. Even if you have 30 or 40 years experience as an attorney, and even if all of that experience is in trial work, because that's the other thing that you need to look at is what is the experience in? Is it all drafting contracts? Is it all, or is it all litigation? What is that experience in? Even if you had 30 or 40 years in litigation, which means you're preparing cases for Superior Court, coming onto the bench, it's going to be different because you're handling the case from a completely different perspective. And so I do think that the fact that I have the 6 months on the bench and that I have now that judicial experience is also incredibly important.
Does the judge have administrative duties that we don't see? The judge is in her chambers. What's she doing in there?
Yes, we do. And that was something I knew that we submitted ex parte motions, and I had done that quite a bit, but I did not realize how often that happens with everybody. We have many motions that come in front of us that are submitted to chambers, and then we review them, and we have to often look at the case and know, is this the right thing to sign?
So this is a case not yet in court? They're just pushing paper and making motions?
Most of the time the case has already started. The other thing that we have, though, where the case hasn't started is when we get domestic violence petitions. And so we'll get those restraining orders that are submitted into chambers, and those are cases that hadn't started yet. And as an attorney, again, I had submitted these to the judge. I did not realize how many of these get submitted. Wow. We get them every day. We get restraining orders filed, and many of the times we grant them.
How much review do you need before to grant a restraining order?
Well, there's a declaration is the most important part, and that's a statement by the person under penalty of perjury saying, this is what's happened to me. And when it's a domestic violence case and they're saying that domestic violence happened, they have certain things that they have to demonstrate in order to get that restraining order.
Police cops hate to go on domestic violence calls because you never know what's going to happen. It's hard to get two angry people who don't even see the cops
right.
to stand down.
Right.
When that finally gets to court, is it a difficult case to try to? Does it stay difficult all the way down the line?
It does in a different way. Domestic violence cases that are criminal cases. So what I was just talking about was domestic violence cases that actually haven't been reported to the police yet, or maybe that they have, but that's only a part of it. When it's a call where law enforcement's had to come out, then usually that will be filed as a criminal charge. And when that happens, one of the difficulties we have is often the victims don't want to testify anymore.
They've cooled off.
They feel, for whatever reason, there are a variety of reasons why somebody might say, I don't want to press charges anymore. Maybe they have kids together. Maybe they're still fearful. Maybe they're not fearful anymore because they're out of the immediate situation that was scary. And so it's difficult from the judge's perspective when you see that, and you see it happen a lot. So where alleged victims won't want to continue on with the case, but it's that at that point the state and the court will often continue because it needs to be prosecuted if it happened.
Do people expect the judge to have the so-called wisdom of Solomon to just be able to come up with a decision that's going to please everybody or please no one, but be the right thing to do?
It is always what is the right thing to do. And so sometimes I will make a decision and I think, I know why I am doing this, and I know that this is the right thing to do, but I can just guess that there are going to be many people that are unhappy with it. But I can't make my decisions worried about what people are going to think. I have to make the right decision under the law and the facts.
If someone is upset with a judge's decision, do they have any recourse other than appeal? Do they write to you and say, you were unfair, you misunderstood, or thank you so much, you finally saw the light, and my life has changed thanks to your decision? What do they say?
Well, it depends. On many cases, you can file a motion for reconsideration. And so if you think maybe the judge didn't hear what I was trying to say, or they missed something important that I presented, then you can file a motion for reconsideration, and the judge could reconsider. But otherwise, it usually goes up on appeal, and that's the option.
Did you have to work on your demeanor when you first when you first put on the robes and sat on the bench? You just say, I better be a certain way. I don't know. Maybe you were modeling yourself on the judge that you admired.
I have thought about that because you see judges on TV, and some of them are a certain way, and I don't know that I come across that way, but I think you have to be true to yourself, and I think that I have a good demeanor. Did I think about how I was going to be? Of course, you want to be authoritative, but I never wanted to be. I never wanted to come across as if I was losing my temper. I always wanted to be very calm and patient, while at the same time maintaining that control in the courtroom. And that is something that feels a little bit odd at first, because as an attorney, you're advocating your position, and so you're not worried about what everybody else is doing and how to control the courtroom. As a judge, that's one of your main jobs, is to control the courtroom and not let things get out of hand. So that is something I had to really.
People are usually kind of quiet in court, but sometimes they get outspoken, I'm sure.
Yes,
how many times have you reached for the gavel? And are you a good hammerer? Can you really make that thing sing?
Well, we don't use the gavel as much as you see on TV, but there have been times where I thought, I wish I had this thing handy, because it's a little bit, it's not on hand as easily as it could be. But I have a couple times told people, you need to stop or I'm going to hold you in contempt.
That's pretty straightforward.
It is.
But you mentioned television judges, and the ones I think of are all of the arraignment judges in New York on Law and Order.
Right.
When they say, but we need Boyd with bail, and the judge says, cry me a river, and then next case.
Right.
But that's meant to be humorous. But I imagine in Manhattan on a busy day, you'd probably get that kind of justice. Of course,
I don't know.
It's
maybe.
an arraignment court, so they have to move along.
Yeah, right. And, we have, when we're setting bail, that's what we call preliminary appearances, but that's the first appearance. That's when for a criminal case, that's the first time they come in front of the judge. And we don't usually have so many that it's just, bam, 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 trying to get through them or anything. But that is a very important part of what we do from the judge's standpoint, what the judge does for the criminal justice system.
I have to take a quick break here. I'm sorry. We're running away, and I should be playing commercials, but I'm having fun talking about law, just as if I were, maybe I'll go to law school. We'll be back right after this. News Radio 560 KPQ. We're almost out of time. It's 1:58 and a half. My guest is Judge Kristin Ferrera. She's running for the Chelan County Superior Court. We have a moment, Your Honor. Would you ask the people of Chelan County for their vote, please?
Yes, I do ask for your vote in November. There will be no primary for this, for the election for me. And so I will be on the ballot in November. And again, I ask for your support. And if you have any additional questions or information that you want about me, you can go to my website, which is judgeferrera.com. And that's all my contact information is on there as well. And
if you have your days free, you can go by and watch Your Honor work. You can actually sit in Superior Court and watch the affairs.